All right, this is the follow up, and we are following up today on a video, on a live video I did on George's Bass Chat last year in 2020 entitled Upright Bass in Pop and R&B. My guest today on the follow up is the great Rufus Reid, himself wonderful bass player and educator. Rufus, I want to say thank you so much for making yourself available and welcome to the follow up.
Well, thank you so much, George. It's really been a pleasure to uh, basically get reacquainted with you and
Yeah.
actually see you. I haven't seen you in 5, 6 years, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really great, and to hear that you're doing well, and I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. No, I'm so happy and I'm so thrilled to have you here. So, for those watching, for those listening, let me just give you a little bit of breakdown and history of Rufus and my history, my background, and why I thought he would be a perfect guest for the follow up and for this particular subject. Um, Rufus Reid is the writer of a great bass method entitled The Evolving Bassist, and then a second book as well, Evolving Upward. Is that correct? Is that
Yes, that initially it was that, and then several years later I combined the two and
okay?
augmented them, and so it's now just one
Just one. This that
larger.
goes to show how long I've known you, because I still have both.
Right.
So anyway, in the evolving basis, there is at the beginning there's sort of an introduction, and where Rufus points out that, and I'm paraphrasing, whatever style of music you want to play, it is imperative in order to play it authentically to go back to the roots of that particular style and learn it that way. And I know that as a young player and a young student of music, and still a student of music today, that particular sentence made a lot of sense to me and definitely has guided me for over 20 years now. Um, so Rufus, let me turn it over to you. Upright bass in pop and R&B. What is the first thing that comes to your mind in regards to going back to the roots of a particular style of music and with this instrument?
Well, I started out on electric
Exactly.
because I was. Well, let me clarify that. I
Mm-hmm.
started out actually playing in a band on electric because I hadn't developed the stamina or chops to actually play the double bass. When I was in the military, I had the opportunity to basically teach myself the double bass and figure out because I before that I was a trumpet player, so I didn't even
Right.
know what bass clef was about.
Right.
I
Right.
hadn't even talked thought about that, and I did know the importance of the piano at that time.
Right.
That so learning the bass clef was that was a whole nother thing too. Uh, but I began to grow both with the double bass and the electric bass, and when it really began to come together for me was in Montgomery, Alabama,
Okay.
in 1962. Uh, well, no, actually, late '61, and then I was there for 2.5 years. Um, and I began to listen to the music. Um, I mean, at that time, I would want. I loved jazz, but I didn't really know a whole lot about that. And of course, I came up with um, the Motown stuff and Bobby
Mm-hmm.
Blue Bland and
Right.
James Brown, and I saw Ike and Tina Turner's band, and that just kind of blew my head off,
Right. Right.
and then I saw the Motown, probably the first review out of Detroit. Now here I'm in Montgomery, Alabama now,
Mm.
and I think this was either in Birmingham. It's been so long now I don't remember. But the band, I didn't really. It was a rock and roll show,
Right. Right.
and I had the girlfriend that wanted to go, and I didn't want to go to a rock and roll show, you know. But I went with her, and I mean the Marvelous, Mary Wells, the
Mm.
Contours, and the Supremes when they were like really young, you know.
Right.
And so we get there, and but the band, which was a big band,
Hmm.
played an entire hour before the show
Oh.
started,
Right.
and they were playing jazz and they were solos, and I said, I didn't even know, I I didn't know you could do that.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it
Yeah.
was a real eye opener for me because you know we can become jaded very quickly by just not knowing our
Right.
ignorance of things,
Right.
and then they came out and the show just went for three
Took
hours
over.
later. You know,
Right.
and I said, and so my appreciation for um, the music that actually had a hump in it,
Right.
that actually had a serious groove,
Mm.
that it was things would begin to come together, and I would try to play. I was in this band and we would play the clubs, and then uh, we played tunes that I played the upright on,
Hmm.
and there were no pickups at that time, so,
Right.
so it had to be a whole different kind of vibe. But the electric bass, we had to learn stuff off the jukebox
Right.
because on Friday and Saturday the people were going to be there, so you had to learn uh, quickly
Yeah.
your part,
Yeah.
and then you had to retain it. Now
Right.
I didn't know that that was difficult. I mean, nobody told me. It's just what we had to do if
Right.
you wanted to hang.
Right.
And then so uh, I began to see the how close these musics were. You
Right.
know,
Right.
I'd been listening to jazz, Ray Brown and Oscar Peterson trio, um, uh, and then turn around and listen to Ike and Tina Turner and well, I heard James Brown's band. He was beating up two drummers then. You know, it was amazing. But the one thing that really kind of really slapped me, it really woke me up, was we went to dance
Mm.
to this club and people were dancing, and this bass line was coming out. And I said, man, that's a hip bass line.
Mm.
And I go to the jukebox and it's Senior Blues or Horace Silver.
Oh, check that out.
And I said, well, who's Horace Silver?
Mm.
I mean, I didn't, I had, you know, I was really a novice at that time of really, and then, and to be able to have this ability to, you can play notes, but you had to find the hump. You had to
Right.
find the groove, the core of what the pulse that made it all work, whether people danced or not. It and that's all I've ever known.
Mm.
So when I play both instruments, that doesn't change.
Right.
It but you do have to understand, where things came from, and it took me a while to realize when I began to put this book together that you've been talking about that. You have to go back to the source if you think, because you might think you came up with something, and it's been
Right.
done before,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But and then I heard Jimmy Blanton, and he was doing stuff that people still can't do today
Yeah.
on gut strings. I mean,
Right.
this guy, even before I was born, he was uh, taking bold solos, and not just some scratchy sounding, but I mean the pitch,
Right there.
everything was right there.
Right.
But he could rock the band too,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's all I've ever known. I didn't think it was something that I had to learn. It was just part of it, and if I couldn't do that, I wasn't doing it.
Right.
I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
I think my whole career has been kind of based upon that, because when I try to play, if people want me to play a certain way, then that's where I have to go first, because that tells me more information than the actual piece of music tells
Right.
me.
Right. 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 Right.
So
Right.
it's kind of wild, but and so my I haven't played the electric bass in quite a few years. The last recording I did, utilizing the electric bass, was with Jack DeJohnette, and it was like a reggae kind of
Mm-hmm.
groove. But that wasn't, at that time, it wasn't something that I would play both of them. But then a lot of people, the music was changing, and I had already made a commitment to play a certain style of music uh, as a forte, and
Right.
so I didn't feel I had to learn, but I did take some lessons on trying to do the finger popping stuff, and you know, because it was very intriguing to me
Yeah.
to wow, and of course, um, but when you talk about the things of going to the source, like
Mm-hmm.
for me, to the first time I went to Puerto Rico, and this bass player, he had never thought about playing tenths that he learned in my book,
Oh wow. Check that out.
but he showed me what he does
Right.
using the tenths that he learned from me,
Right.
and man, I said, you're gonna have to teach me some of that, because I mean, he put his stuff
Right.
but I just gave him an idea, because that was one of the things that my uh, I it wasn't stylistic. My book was not stylistic,
Right. Right. And
and
that
I think
was
that was the success of the book.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
you
That
know.
was definitely noticeable. That was totally noticeable. And I mean, again, like it's been 20, 30 years now since I've had the book, right? Is I still have like the first edition still signed from you and all of that. Like it's pretty awesome. But it it definitely spoke to me because at the time, I'm a teenager. I'm finding my way. I'm finding my likes and dislikes, and I'm like, okay, I'm into pop music. I'm into R&B, and this book is telling me to let's go or let's take it out of that realm. I'm into rock. Let me go to the source of that, right?
Right,
Let me go to the
right,
blues, let me go to
right,
Jimi Hendrix, let me go to what comes before Jimi Hendrix, right? And
right,
all of it
right.
is now inside this method, which I of course associated with the upright bass. And immediately the route kind of goes to say a Willie Dixon now, you know. So now we're in it because now we got Willie Dixon playing the bass with Muddy Waters, and we're at the root, right? Many years later, I'm doing a show in Sag Harbor about Big May Bell, the blues singer, right?
Right, right.
Who had, by the way, let me just ask you, guess who was Big May Bell's producer back in 51 to 55?
Wow.
Still
I
alive
would,
today.
really?
Yeah.
Huh. Quincy? Not Quincy. Really?
Quincy Jones. Yeah.
Really?
And I have to say, this is good that I'm recording this. You're the only one that has ever answered this correctly.
Well, I mean, it's funny because Quincy, I mean, his whole career has been an open book. I mean,
Yeah.
wherever it goes, but it all had to have that thing,
Yeah,
you
it had
know.
to have that pocket. So, all this to say that Big May Bell is playing blues and R&B at a time before the invention, the so-called invention of rock and roll. Definitely before the electric bass. All of the source material for that show was all on upright bass, right?
Mm.
And I was so reminded of the lessons that I took with you because a lot of that was kind of a two feel. It's not, there's a lot of walking there as well, but there's a lot of two feels.
Yeah, but that's the hump of it. Yeah,
Exactly,
right.
exactly. So, you know, that's why I kind of put the two and two together, meaning the book and the idea of going back to the root material, to the source material, so to speak, and starting your journey from there and going, still staying true to whatever music you like.
Right,
There's
right, exactly.
nobody's telling anyone. I'm certainly not implying to go in a different direction. Do what you like, but start from the roots and work yourself
Well,
up.
yeah, because that validates whatever you think you're doing,
Exactly.
and actually gives you the confidence that you know, you are doing what's necessary that the music requires. But
Right, 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 right,
yeah,
right. Let me just put this out there as well, because I did take these lessons with you, and I still have the tapes and all of that, and I still work with them. But your emphasis was on the two feel and on the dynamics of how I was playing at the time, and there was a lack of dynamics, and the two feel did not have the emphasis that I got after the lessons, right? And a lot of that you hear in those examples of upright bass in pop and R&B, early R&B, right? What was your, and I think I know the answer to this because you already hinted at it, but what was your introduction to that field? What was like, how did that come about, and why was that so important to you?
well, traditionally it was part of the music. I mean, of how uh, it, the music would grow, the
Right,
music would develop. It
right,
wouldn't be monotone.
right.
Uh, uh, in fact, we wouldn't be talking about it if it was monotone. You
Exactly.
know, I mean, everything has to have um, the dynamics is part of the drama of music. You know,
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, and bass players, because as you know, when you came to me, it's just you and me. And
Right.
then I would try to get you to forget I'm there, and I wanted to see you. Um, what are you thinking about? What are you doing? Are you able to do this by yourself? Because if you're waiting for the drummer to make you sound good, or the guitar player, or the piano player, or whomever,
Right.
then you're not going to grow. And to me, if they're going to uh, be be the ones that actually make you, at least you think, well, then you're not going to work. First of all,
Right.
and forget it. But so that you have to be responsible for the pulse and for the flow,
Right.
the dynamic flow. Every song has dynamics. Everything can't be in your face,
Yeah.
and so it's learning to control your body, whether you're playing electric bass or the big bass.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to to control your right hand
Right.
to get the sound. The left hand basically doesn't change no
Yeah.
matter what,
It's so true.
but it's the right hand, the producer,
Yeah.
is the one. Okay, we're getting coming toward the bridge. Oh, you know, so you pump it up
Yep.
and bam, and then all of a sudden when you get to the bridge, everybody says yeah. So when everybody does it in the group at the same time, it becomes incredibly powerful. But we as bass players should be the instigator of all those things. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
and tell people this is where it's at, you
Right.
know. And I saw that when I saw Ray Brown play live.
Mm.
See, the thing is, you can hear stuff on recordings,
Right.
but it's not the same.
Right.
And that maybe after you've heard it live, you can actually have a better picture of when you hear people play
Right.
on a recording, and it could be really a good recording. But I I could see him, and when they played something, I could see him hold back. I can see him restrain himself. I could see him push.
Mm.
I can
Mm.
I can feel it. I said, "Oh, you can feel it coming."
Yeah.
It's not just it's not black and white. It it and it makes sense to me. I and I think you can teach those things or make it people more aware of those things that they do exist.
Right.
So actually, what I was trying to get everybody to just to be in tune to what they're doing
Right. Right. Right.
personally,
Yeah.
and then because if we can't do it, the band's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
it's still yeah.
I just feel that way because if the bass player is just a blasé bassist,
It's not gonna move.
and it can uh, can you imagine Miles Davis's band without Ron Carr
No.
or without Paul Chambers?
I was just gonna say
I
it's
said no, 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 no.
yeah.
I mean, and then you listen to the James Jamerson, or you listen to Chuck Rainey,
Yeah.
and man, you know,
No, right there you have that lineage and that same understanding of dynamics, of there's one thing that so many things that are just coming to my mind right now, but there's one thing that I remember an interview with Larry Graham that I watched.
ooh,
Larry Graham, talks about recording with a kick, right? And everything is locked in at 110, whatever it is. The kick is locked in, right? The verse 110, the chorus 110, the bridge 110, right? And he said, but your heart doesn't work that way. When you get to the chorus, there is anticipation. There is something happening. There's drama. Yeah, so you might just speed up a little bit, right? When you get to the bridge, which is a different part of the song, you might go into a different pocket altogether, right?
right,
And
right.
he really works that way. I have the great pleasure and honor to work with the great Buddy Williams quite a bit. Now, Buddy will approach the pocket in that way and will have a dynamic shift going from one verse to a bridge to a chorus.
That's what music is, man.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, we can put the styles and stuff on it, but that's what makes the music. You can whether it's Brazilian music, whether it's rock and roll or funk or
Yeah,
straight ahead jazz, or but you know the person who really kind of made it really vivid, the two feeling was
mm-hmm.
Ahmad Jamal. That actually, he made an entire record. Um, and I'm listening to the record because you listen to some jazz records and they play in 2/4 for a little bit, and then after a couple courses they go to 4/4, and because that's what you expect.
Yeah. But then he's
His
singing.
his whole album was there, and every tune, and you're waiting like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
never happens, and that anxiety just kept building and building. I said, man, and it's proof that you
Mm,
don't have to go, but there were still dynamics, and there was
right,
still this other
right.
um, kind of intangible thing that was present, and um, it became, I mean, a signature for him,
Right, right.
just for his style. And so uh, let's keep it in.
Oh
It
yeah,
works. Let's
yeah.
keep it in,
Let's
And
not.
so that's where I think a lot of players, okay, let's, and then some people go to two just out of habit. I said, well, why you go so soon?
Mm,
Let's make it, because if it's slow, it still has. Because when I was with Dexter Gordon, I mean, we would play a ballad, and the tempo would be. You almost don't think those numbers can be on a metronome. It'd be so slow,
right, right.
and yet it still had to have a pulse. It still had to have, and it when it was, oh, here comes the bridge. I mean, you can hear it coming. You can
Right,
feel it coming.
right, right.
Um, and to me, these are things that I'm quite aware. I'm not just playing notes. I'm really
Right.
trying to be a part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and that specificity is exactly what at least to me attracted me to upright bass in pop and R&B, right? You do find that there, and then once you find it there, you interestingly enough you hear it everywhere else. You hear it in
Right.
all the branches of the tree, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's that was it again, like that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you today about
Yeah,
this,
well,
because
I mean, when you
it's
hit people like Milt Hinton and Major Holly, and
yeah,
those guys were coming up at the time where it wasn't about playing a lot of notes and trying to solo and play the notes off the bass. It was about uh, keeping that groove happening from the get go to the end,
right,
and no hiccups and none of the stuff in the middle, and that's not as easy. It sounds easy,
yeah,
but it is not that easy.
no, no,
And
no,
so the concentration, and it was amazing to see someone like a Milt Hinton. This is where the slap bass began to. I mean, there were people just before him, but I mean, this guy was amazing.
mm,
Um, he's all over the bass. I mean, in the upper register and everything, and pitch was right there,
spot
and
on,
the
yeah,
pulse. I mean, I can't do that stuff. We even watched it, and they put it on a camera, and they still can't see how fast his hands
mm,
were moving. But that he started that with all that stuff, and it came from the tube. It came from the tuba. It came
right,
from from the
right.
whole. So there was quite a lineage
Oh
there,
yeah, man,
So you don't just play two, you
right.
know, you know.
Right, 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 right. Well, listen, Rufus Reid, I want to again, like, I want to thank you so much for making yourself available today. This has been such a great conversation, and I, I'm very very grateful for you for you to make the time and to answer these seemingly difficult questions. Because I mean, it's just not something that people think about a lot, or that.
No, because they don't. I mean, I want to be hipper than that.
Right, right.
People try to make. I mean, once all that works, everything else will fall into place. I really feel,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
there was just one instance that I think I'd like to say when I got a chance to play with Cedar Walton and Billy Higgins.
Mm.
So fantastic. Uh, both of them were amazing. But Cedar Walton said something to me, and it was the first time I actually got a chance to play with both of them,
Mm.
and I was scared to death. I didn't have to be, but they hired me, and then we played this one Thelonious Monk tune. He said, "Rufus, stay in two until you can't stand it."
Yeah,
And I said,
makes
"Huh?
sense.
What do you mean?" And but don't be so in a hurry. Don't
Right.
and and man, it just built and built, and when it went to 4/4, it was an explosion.
Yeah, yeah,
It was an event,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what that really taught me. He says, you don't just go to 4/4. You don't just play in two.
Right.
It's you have a reason of of for it to evolve,
Right.
and that is the audiences respond to those things,
Very much.
and
Very
they
much
don't
so.
even know what they're responding to, but they can sure feel, they can feel it, and
Yeah.
that's what we're supposed to do as bass players, just to help them get it, you
I always liken us as two manipulators of emotions.
know. That's I like that, yeah.
You know, because really, we're supposed to play something, the audience is supposed to feel it, and we need to be clear
And if
about
they
that.
don't feel it, you're not doing your job.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know. You know.
All right. Well, listen, Rufus Reid, once again, thank you so much for making yourself available today. I'm
It's
very
my
very
pleasure.
grateful, and please give my love, say hello to the family and all of them, and stay well, stay safe.
You as well.
It
Yes.
seems that we're at the end of this, or we're getting to an end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Right.
Fingers
Right.
crossed that things move in the right direction,
Right.
and hopefully I'll get to see you again, in Midtown or wherever.
Yes, that would be really quite wonderful. But today was really a joy. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you.
asking me, and it's great to see you and see that you're good and healthy and vibrant. And um, uh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rufus Reid. All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.